There's plenty of room at the state capitol. We were at you and I sat in a committee hearing about a week or so ago, and there was a couple hundred people showed up in a.
Now that was awesome.
That was awesome. But we filled the place up, and the representatives in the committee were going. They're looking over their shoulder, going, "What's going on around here?" In fact, they even announced there was a side room that had a closed circuit television for people with overflow. That's how many people were there. That's what needs to happen. We need to not just talk about it, but we need to take the time off, especially between January and May. We need to take responsibility for government and get up and go down to the state capitol for these things.
Yes.
Because it's our future, it's our kids' future, whether we ignore this or not anymore. We can't ignore it. We're not supposed to.
I also want to point out to people too, though, if they absolutely can't go down to the Capitol, they can watch much of these hearings on the computer.
Correct.
All they have to do is log into the State of Minnesota website, and boom, there it is, and they can watch these committee hearings. They can email their
representatives, they can give their opinions. And for everybody who tells me I don't have a computer, you and I have donated so that every library in Minnesota has computers that are free.
Free.
Go to your local library. You do have resources, and we all have opportunity.
And you know what? If you don't know how to use them, they'll teach
you. They'll help you.
They'll even help you get to the whatever page you need to go to.
Yes.
And of course, the telephone works too. You can always pick up the phone and call your representatives and tell them you are paying attention. You work for me, and here's what I want you to focus on. What I want to point out though is when you and I went down to the Capitol, you would think, because there were Republicans in charge of the majority now in the Senate and the House, you would think we were down there to pat them on the back for introducing a fabulous bill.
That would restrict government and put it within the confines of the Constitution. That's what I would have thought. But
I was ready to go down to cheer for bills that I was really happy to see, whether it was a photo ID bill or a zero-based budgeting bill or lifting the smoking ban. I mean, there were so many bills
Seat belts. I mean, you could go on and on down the list of things.
Yeah, but it wasn't. That wasn't what got us down there. No. What got us down there was a horrendous bill introduced by a Republican. A Republican in the House of Representatives, Steve Gottwalt, introduced further expansion of Obamacare. Now, you can say whatever you want about Obamacare, but the bottom line is the bulk of the people in the United States of America want it repealed. They think it's a bad bill. It is not going to save us any money, not one dime. In fact, it's going to cost us money. We will not receive better care. And mandating the citizens of the states to buy a product is unconstitutional. You have 26 states that have filed lawsuits against the constitutionality of Obamacare, and you have another 20 states with Republican governors who are coming out saying, we really oppose this expansion of Obamacare at any level. Tea Party people, libertarians, conservatives, most Republicans say and believe we will fight Obamacare until every option is exhausted. It is a bad law. It should not be the law of Minnesota, and government has no business with that kind of overreach.
No, that being said, Sue, I just read 2 days ago that the judge in the case of Florida is considering repealing his decision to make it unconstitutional for Obamacare. And the reason, he said, is 22 out of those 26 states who have filed lawsuit against Obamacare are collecting and asking for the waivers and the things from the federal government. So the judge is going, you've got 26 states that say we want nothing to do with Obamacare, yet 22 of these states are asking for the money, asking for the waivers, and setting up their organizational structure within their state to comply. That comes back to this House bill that we're discussing, 497, of why the Republicans in the state House of Representatives are introducing. It's called the Minnesota Exchange.
Health Insurance Exchange.
Health Insurance Exchange. I went down and talked to Representative Galtwell myself, and he said, well, as long as we as Republicans need to have control of this process.
Flat out lie. Flat out lie.
That's why we introduced it. And I looked at him and I said, if the Democrats want it, let them introduce it. I said, we tried this last year with the Minnesota-Care that Plenty at the special session tried to do. And that didn't work out very well for the Republicans because a Democrat was elected governor and he signed off and we got Obamacare 3 years earlier in Minnesota. So you can't tell me as a citizen that a Republican's putting this forward is going to somehow have control. There is no guarantee of control. If a bill is put into law, it's law. So how can you have control?
Let me make this very clear. Let me make this very clear.
Go ahead, Sue.
Obamacare tells the people of every single state, all states, including Puerto Rico, all of them, what 4 policies must be mandated for their citizens to buy. Platinum, silver, gold, bronze. That's it. I don't care if a Republican introduces it. I don't care if a Democrat introduces it. I don't care if the man on the moon introduces it. You get 4 choices. That's it. 4 choices. They have to meet the requirements set out by the federal government. It doesn't matter who does it. You got 4 choices. And once Minnesota agrees to this health insurance exchange with these 4 policies as your only choices come 2014, 4 choices, that's it. If you don't comply, the state of Minnesota turns you over to the IRS.
Correct. And you get fined.
The state of Minnesota can share all your personal data with hundreds of government agencies, your personal and private medical data.
I want to interrupt you there, Sue. One of the things that a little line item in the Obamacare bill gave the Secretary of Health and Human Services the right to issue a waiver of compliance. And since the bill was passed last summer at the federal level, 200 organizations, including unions, McDonald's, and a whole bunch of businesses have all received waivers from the federal government that their employees don't have to participate in this process, relinquishing millions of people's contributions in compliance with those federal laws. That said, that loss of revenue on a federal level has got to be picked up by somebody else. And it's going to be the rest of the people who can't afford to have lobbyists in Washington getting special waivers. But that's what's going on, and that list of entities is continuing to grow and grow and grow.
It's 1,000.
It's 1,000.
It's 1,000.
There you go.
Do you know who just got one last week?
No.
Maine. The entire state of Maine.
The entire state of Maine. So a handful of small businesses in the country are going to be drowned with liability that they will never afford and put them out of business.
Right. And one way or another, this will be fast-tracked to the Supreme Court, and I firmly believe it will be declared unconstitutional. I'm happy to say that we have a lot of representatives, not enough, but a lot, who are willing to fight to repeal it. Defund it, repeal it, and start over.
So let's talk about 497. We came there, we sat there and listened to the both sides banter back and forth. There was a big discussion on the representatives not having the authority to understand the Constitution and whether or not their bill is legal or not. That's their whole purpose of being there. Their obligation is to comply with this Constitution. If it fits within here, then they got all the latitude they want under the Constitution to pass law. That's their privilege. That's what their responsibility is. But there was a big argument there about constitutionality, whether or not it should be, or even infringement on what defines mandated.
One of the funniest parts that I thought of the hearing, and I've seen this happen at several hearings since then too, related to other bills, but the new thing for the Democrats to do is if anybody uses the term Obamacare, they raise their hand and they say, I'm offended. I'm offended by the term Obamacare. And Obamacare is, everybody, the media uses it, President Obama uses it, the federal government uses it, and there have been testy exchanges between people over if they're offended or not. And my comment to the Democrats, if you're offended, too bad. Too bad. Nobody promised you wouldn't be offended.
My natural reaction to that is, if that's what you get offended about, then you don't belong in office. Right. Democrat or Republican, you don't belong in office. If that's all it takes to offend you, because there's a lot bigger issues than that.
Yeah.
And so some of the highlights of this House File 497 were what?
There were no highlights.
There wasn't any. I thought there was. It's straight up.
Oh, are we talking about the health insurance exchange?
Yeah, the health insurance exchange.
No, there is nothing good in the health insurance exchange. It is a bad bill. It should not be introduced by anyone, let alone certainly not by Republicans. There is absolutely no way that they can put enough lipstick on that pig to make it good.
And just to let people know, go to Minnesota House, type in up in the upper left corner of the page, it says House File. Type in 497 and you can see the bill yourself.
Or you can do it by keyword. Do it by health insurance
exchange.
Health
insurance exchange.
Right.
Find out who the representatives are on that committee and then just call them up and email them and say, hey guys, I don't like this. But I really encourage people to actually go read the bill itself. I don't want you to take my word or Sue's word for this about what's in this language.
Oh, Look it up. Take my word. No.
I always got to check with myself too, but have the people take the time and look up the bill and read the language for yourself.
Right, and I'll tell you, this is one of those bills that is a little bit complicated. Most of the bills are pretty self-explanatory as to what they're trying to do. But a lot of people say, well, what's a health insurance exchange? It sounds so nice, a place where I can go and look at all the different insurance policies. Yeah, that sounds great until the government comes in and says, yeah, you get 4 to pick from. 4, that's it. No other choices come 2014. And they determined what is qualified. Well, the government has no business determining what kind of health insurance I need for my family. I determine that. My doctor will help me determine what needs that I have to be met, and I'll determine how much it should cost.
And right now it's 4. In another 10 years, when they can't afford it, it's going to be 2 programs.
Or 1.
Or 1.
And then the state turns us over. And the really funny thing is, the places that have tried this, it hasn't worked. It has been so expensive that nobody's been able to afford the insurance. Texas shut theirs down. Hawaii shut theirs down. Supposedly, Utah, Steve Gottwalt, the chair of the committee, said Utah has a handle on the health insurance exchange. They're doing really good things, and that Minnesota wanted to copy Utah. Well, Utah has only sold 400 policies. 400 isn't enough.
So it's not mandated yet in Utah.
It's not mandated yet in Utah. And the policies that are acceptable to the federal government cost 130% more than any other policy. So it costs more. Not enough people wanted to join in it. Oh, wait a minute. Sounds like every other government program they've ever tried.
Yes.
And the cost overruns are unbelievable, so the states are shutting them down right and left.